Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Powerful Man Show. I am your host, Doug Holt, with my co-host, Tim, the Powerful Man Matthews. What's going on, brother?
Sounded like a commentator for like horse racing or something then.
And we're off.
Yeah, I'm great. I'm looking forward to this topic, seeing as it's mine. If you've not enjoyed the last two topics there, Dougs, this one will make up for the last two.
Absolutely. So let's talk about your life, Tim.
You know how I like to talk about
I do.
that. So yeah, the power of being needy. What do you think, Doug, when I said about this title? What came to mind for you?
Wimpy.
Wimpy. Oh wow.
Wimpy
Okay.
is the first thing that came to mind when you said the power of being needy.
Okay.
I think neediness. When I think neediness, I think weakness. I think of kind of the groveling male who's groveling to his woman.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, please spend time with me. Please have sex with me. That whole deal.
Yep. And do you know what? When I was struggling with this concept, I thought similar things. And the part of the struggle that I experienced with having needs in a relationship was that I was of the belief that as a guy, I was the one that was supposed to hold the space for the relationship and for the woman, right? We've spoken about it's kind of like the hidden motives technique, how it invites her into her femininity. We spoke about Lose the King system and having boundaries. And, a lot of what we've spoken about is the role of a man and how he fulfills that role in a relationship to be the anchor, right, for the relationship and for himself. And, before I used to struggle with understanding, okay, well, if I'm supposed to be this guy who holds the space and who passes these tests that get thrown at me and who is able to be unwavering and make sure he's responsible for filling his own cup and living from the inside out and so on, then how do I actually get certain needs met in the relationship? I was kind of starting to struggle with thinking, is it wrong for me to feel like I have needs and my needs are not being met? Am I being needy because I have needs and my needs are not being met? And as I started to explore this and dive into it, somebody said something to me that was quite profound for me. It was a real perspective shift. And she said, Tim, you know what? If this lockdown was to continue forever, right? Then sure, I'm okay right now in the short term in lockdown because, I like my own company. But if this was to continue forever, then we would start to suffer, the world would start to suffer with mental health issues, especially the people who are living alone, right? And it really got me thinking, and it reminded me of a story about Mandela on Robben Island. And I can remember when I went to South Africa a few years ago, and we were having a tour around Robben Island, and they showed us this place where one of Mandela's right-hand men lived, right? And it was on this little plot away from the rest of the prison. And what they had done with him is they cut off his tongue so that he couldn't talk to any of the guards who would patrol him. And as they patrolled him, they basically ignored him and pretended as though he didn't exist, right? And it literally drove him insane, literally, over time. The loneliness, the isolation, the lack of other human connection, right? And that's the reality. As human beings, we require other human beings in order to flourish, in order to survive. And in a relationship, it's really important to be able to articulate what your needs are, right? And to take a stand for your needs. Not coming from a place of neediness, but instead coming from a place of leadership. And for me, the big, and I'm still working on this because this is something that is, just even knowing what your needs are in a relationship, either sexually or spiritually or emotionally. For most guys, they don't even know, and this is, I was there too. If you said to them, hey, go and do 5 things for yourself this weekend, most guys wouldn't even know what those 5 things would be, right? Because they've just, they've lost touch with themselves that much. So getting in tune with yourself and understanding what your needs are in a relationship, there's a lot of power there, right? Because it's one thing knowing what your needs are in a relationship and the needs that only you can fulfill for yourself, right? And not looking to the other person to do those for you. So you've got to be doing that. That's one side of this. Yeah. Like working out and having time on your own and treating yourself in particular ways. So there's certain things that you must do for yourself in order to bring your best self to the relationship. And if you're not doing those, then you become needy in an unhealthy way, like you described at the beginning. If you are doing those and you're then taking your best self to the relationship, there are still needs that you have, that we have as men and human beings, both men and women, that can only be met by another person. And unless you have those needs met by another person, you're always going to feel like there's something missing, not only in the relationship, but in life as well. For example, desire. Human beings want to feel desired. And, you can only do so much to feel desired on your own, right? Human beings it's important for human beings to have affection. You can only do so much to give yourself affection, right? So another way this was explained to me, obviously, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right?
Sure do.
Yeah. So what was previously, obviously that's a pyramid, yeah? So I'm sure you're aware of this, but another way it was explained to me was previously it was thought that Maslow's hierarchy of needs, you would elevate from one need to the next. It's only when you fulfilled that base level need of survival or physical needs, I can't remember exactly what it is, that you could then move to the next one. Because, okay, my base level needs are met. So I can move to the next one, the next one, the next one. And the top one being like self-actualization, right? Real growth. But what has actually come to light is the fact that you don't elevate through the needs in that way. Instead of it being a pyramid, it's more like a ladder. And you have, one foot on the physical needs, 1 foot, maybe 2 rungs up on the sexual needs, one hand on the top rung, which is like the growth needs, a hand on the second to top rung. So you're always navigating through each of these to climb up. So the point of this is when you understand what your needs are, and then find the power within yourself to articulate those needs to your wife or whatever relationship, and take a stand for yourself from a place of leadership to have those needs met, whereby you will not settle for anything less than those needs being met. And if they are not met, then there's a consequence. That doesn't have to be, done with anger, but there's a consequence because you're not going to tolerate your needs not being met because you value yourself and your needs so highly. So this is where there really gets to be power in actually being needy. And I'm kind of curious, what's your experience with this and what's your thoughts around this?
Yeah, I think this is a really interesting conversation, and one I had probably with the same person I think we're talking about here many years ago. But I don't think it's needy. I think that's the wrong terminology here. I think, I don't like needy for this because needy to me means, when I think of needy as a word, right? I think of needy as somebody who is almost a victim if their needs aren't being met, rather than someone says, I have needs. Very different. It's kind of like saying someone who's assertive versus someone who's a complete dick, right? Very different in the outcome and the energy and who that person is. And so that's, I agree with everything you said except for the using the word needy, which I strongly disagree with. But as far as having needs that you have in your life and in your world that you would like met by somebody else, I think that is completely true. I think where we have to be cautious is when we put the expectation on one particular person to meet those needs. And if they don't meet the needs, then that changes our identity of who we are. And that's where neediness comes in, I think. Right. And that's where, some level of victimhood, I think there is with neediness. I think when I think of neediness, I think of you're losing your power. You're not in your state of power. You've given your power to somebody else. However, when you're assertive and you just have needs met, right? And maybe your partner's not meeting them, but again, you can come with that engaged indifference type philosophy. Then you still have your power, right? You still have the power as a man to make a decision. Great. Okay. My needs aren't being met sexually or whatever they may be. Got it. You can't meet my needs. Understand. I have to go I'm choosing to go get my needs met somewhere else. End of story. Right. But where I think neediness is kind of almost like a whininess coming into it. And that's where I would argue, and when I say argue, I mean like debate, that's different. It's a different energy system coming in. You're coming into the relationship with a different energy because you're coming with a certain expectation that this one person is going to fulfill you, this one person, where I think we're in this scenario that you're mentioning, right? Maybe we put too much weight on that one person, right? Versus just our needs in general. Do you know what I mean? Like maybe we're saying this person needs to fulfill that need. This one person over here, that's the need I have, versus separating the need I have or desire I have and this person being the possible person to fulfill it. And those two things marrying together.
Yeah, but let's use sex though, right? So if you're married and the need is sex, then, I think I was going to say, I think it's quite right, but right's not the right word. No pun intended. It's not the correct word, right? But sex is a great need to talk about, right? Because,
Perfect.
I agree in the sense of you don't want that person doesn't give you something that then shifts your identity, or, shifts your identity is probably the best way to say it. And at the same time, I do believe, a life without sex would feel like more of an unfulfilling life than a life with sex, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if
I
you're
agree.
in a relationship and you are taking responsibility for some of your needs that you can fill yourself, right? And you're not having your sexual needs be met, and you're able to then articulate, hey, look, this is what's coming up for me. And, it's important to me that bum, 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 bum. I have this need met for, however you want to go about articulating it. And it still isn't being met. At which point, if that person doesn't want to fulfill it, you've got your choice of sacrifice the need, at which point, most people would then grow resentful or angry, or I don't even know how long you'd be able to sacrifice the need for, right? It's kind of like if you didn't watch porn or anything either, right? Because you were just going to purely commit to that person. Then that's a tough road to follow. Or you go get it met elsewhere, right? So I think it's fair in that scenario. Or what do you think? I'm thinking that it's fair in that scenario to then place the sexual need to be met on that one person that you're in the relationship with.
Well, so where I would disagree with it is you're requesting, right? And this is the difference between being needy, right? That's where I just don't agree with the word needy. I agree with the rest
Let's
of the
park
scenario.
the word needy. Like, we don't need to get hung up on the word needy. It doesn't really matter the word needy or not, but just the actual scenario of.
Sure, let's use the scenario you just talked about, right? Because I've been in that scenario, right? Where I've been in it. So the way that I approached it and the way I would approach it again is for me, and everybody's different, right? Everybody's beliefs about relationships and commitment and what it means and all of these things are different. And I respect everybody's belief systems around this. But I can tell you what I did and my belief system is and was is I'm going to make the request. This is something I need for my life. This is something I feel is very important to me. I want this to be with you. Can you fulfill this need of mine? Yes or no? And if not, why not? Let's have a dialogue about it. What's going on? Is there something going on for you? Is there something spiritually going on for you? Physically going on for you? Now we can talk. And maybe I can go, okay, well, I can wait or help you get through this, or I get this, or understand where you're coming from. Or, that may change my paradigm, right? All of a sudden that need is like, okay. Well, yeah, I didn't realize you're having this medical condition, which, has happened to a friend of mine. His wife couldn't have sex for a number of years because of a medical reason. Right? That changed his whole philosophy on it, right? All of a sudden, the need for sex was trumped by his desire and need to be with her, right? While she was going through this thing. So for me, going back there, again, can you fulfill this? This is a need for mine. If the answer is yes, I can fulfill this, and it's still not being met, which is what you brought up as the possible scenario, then I would have the conversation again. I wouldn't have it like this, like we're having it, which is very analytical, but I would see, okay, where, if anywhere, am I falling short? Do I need to seduce my wife more? Do I get to play a different role, right? Do I get to reignite her so she's so turned on that I need to stop her and go, look, I'm tired. Like I need a break, right? Where do I get to step up my game? In that area. So those are the questions I asked myself and would ask myself, Tim. And if I felt I was doing everything right, nothing more I can do here, and it's still not working out, I would have the conversation and say, look, my needs, we talked about this. This is something super important to me. I get that maybe it's just not important to you or something you don't want to fulfill. Let's talk about what it's going to look like for me to go get those needs fulfilled elsewhere, because it's that important to me.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the conversation I would have.
Yeah, and the chances are, through that dialogue, she's gonna be reciprocated. It's very highly likely.
Yeah, well, I mean, I've had that dialogue, and for me, the honest answer was coming out there like, there's a lot more I could do, right? Because I'm a guy and I'm working, and all of a sudden I'm like, I'm horny during the day. Let's go have sex, and my wife wants to be more romanced, or my wife had a medical issue going on at the same time, and she didn't feel great about herself, just having all these things that could be going on. And I didn't take the time to get inside her world, really get inside her world, not just ask her, but get inside her world and then see what I could do. All right. Am I showing up as the best Doug that I could possibly be? No, I wasn't. Okay, cool. So before I go step outside of the relationship to get this need fit, I'm going to take care of my side of the street, clean that shit up, make sure that's really great. Then I can go, right? Because for me, Tim, the exiting the relationship was the extreme portion. It wasn't even exiting the relationship, right? Because what I was willing to propose was I would just go get this need fit met elsewhere, but I would still be in the relationship, right? And that was a conversation I was fully willing to have and prepared for. But by going through and sitting down and actually having some serious, tough dialogues, and they're tough conversations.
No, for sure,
right?
Yeah.
And when you have these tough conversations, it's kind of like what we talked about last time. Like, what's your biggest complaint? You're like, I don't want to know. Some people don't want to know. These conversations are tough too, because you start learning where maybe your partner thinks you might be falling short, or maybe you're learning that you're not creating a safe space for your partner to share fully what's going on for her. Right? Which could make you feel like less than a man. Because now, wait, my partner is scared. My wife is scared, and she's scared of me. Like, whoa, what's going on here? Right? She's not fully willing to open up to me. Then that means, to me, how am I showing up as a man?
And this is exactly what I was getting at with the power of being needy, right? Because there's so much, regardless whether you use the word needy or request or whatever, it doesn't matter, right? The power that's involved with this is being able to Obviously, one, take care of the needs that you can meet of your own outside, so you can bring your best self to the relationship. And then two, have the awareness to realize it's okay to have certain requests or certain needs, right? Because I think a lot of the time, I know for myself, it was kind of made out to be a bad thing or a wrong thing, or that I shouldn't have them, and but we do, right? All of us as human beings, it's natural, it's innate, it's healthy to have them because it's part of what forms a really healthy, happy, fulfilling life and relationship. So that's the second piece. Then understand that you have certain requirements, certain needs that do need to be met by somebody else for the most part. And then the process of actually being able to have the dialogue to then have that be met rather than just escaping and jerking off to porn or emotionally cheating through, texting a woman for 4 or 5 months or even sexually cheating or whatever it is, right? There's a lot of power, in my opinion, in that whole process of realizing and accepting it and actually exploring it.
Oh, I completely agree, 100%. And I think these are conversations that, in my opinion, you're involved in a very advanced conversation right now, right, in your relationship. And this is a conversation most men aren't willing to even come close to going to. So I applaud you for it. It brings up so much stuff that bubbles to the surface, right? That most people just, hey, here's really what I need. Here's really how I want to be fulfilled. And
Scary.
it's scary. It's super scary. Well, what's even scarier, at least to me, right, is now your partner gets to tell you.
Yeah, that's the scary part. It's less scary telling them. It's more scary hearing the other side.
Yeah. Like, wait a minute. You want me to put on a construction outfit? Huh. My best friend's a construction man. Wait, what's going on? So I think that's really interesting. And it comes back to like getting, you need to get into your power, right? You need to take your power back. And most men, we let our power go in a relationship. And to your point, right? It's just easier to turn to porn. I'll just turn to porn. Easier to cheat. So much easier, guys, to have an affair than to have the conversation that Tim is talking about here. So much easier, right? Super easy. The conversation you're talking about is a scary one. And it's scary because you might find out things that hurt your feelings, right? That's really what it is. You may be scared to find out that your wife, is fantasizing about other men. You don't know what you're going to find. It's a whole Pandora's box. It could be simple, but you don't get it. Coach Mark and I did a podcast on how to get your power back, right? And it was episode 237. And that ties in with this because I think you need to do that first, because you have your power, Tim, right? I think a lot of the guys, everybody listening to this thinks they do too. But you and I have coached enough men to know that most guys are just going to play it, right? They're not going to really have it back. And so I think you need that foundation in order to have this conversation.
Oh, for sure. I mean, if you think of how the whole organization of Inside Out Living, right? The bottom is self, then it's health, then it's relationships. Yeah. Reason being is because when you really start to develop that depth and those roots within yourself and you're taking care of your health as well, you've got a foundation on which you can actually bringing your best self to the relationship. And then obviously you can start layering on some more simple tools, right? Like the hidden motives technique or like the clean slate method. And you can just you've got to have some base level of connection, right? Before you go into this conversation, there's got to be some connection there and some closeness. If there isn't, and you just dive into this, then, it's obviously more than likely not going to be very well received.
Oh yeah.
But regardless, even with that closeness and that connection, it's scary, at first, I'm looking forward to moving into the phase of this where it's just second nature. Because right now it's scary as hell.
Yeah. Well, I bet, man. I've been there. I've had these conversations and they're still scary for me. Like they become easier. I think it's like anything else you do, right? If you're afraid of heights and you jump off a cliff to go into the water, it's super scary, but the second time, a little bit less scary. Third time, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, takeaways then, Doug. I'll let you wrap this one up. So what are some things the guys can do now then in terms of this whole topic? 3 things.
Well, first and foremost, make sure you have your power back, and go ahead and listen to episode 237. Mark drops a lot of knowledge in that episode of the podcast about how to do it effectively. Like what are the foundational levels? Like, for example, if you're not keeping your word, guys, you're not doing what you say you're going to do, you can't have this level of conversation with somebody, whether it be your wife or anybody else. And if you're not showing up as a powerful man, you can't have this conversation. You just can't. That's when you become needy, right? And that's where I have a challenge with that word, because you really do become needy in that situation. So that's first and foremost, right? And apply the action. The second thing is, if you're going to go into this conversation, prepare yourself to go in with engaged indifference. So what is engaged indifference? So be engaged in the conversation, but indifferent with the outcome of the conversation, indifferent with what the other person says, right? It's not positive. It's not negative, right? It's just something the other person is saying to you. So that Teflon type conversation, bounce back easily. Those are the first two things you can do. The third thing is make sure that you're cleaning up your side of the street first. Take care of your shit first. Take care of you first. Take care of all the things that you're responsible for. Look, if you want your wife to be jumping in the sack with you, yet you're 50 pounds overweight, not going to happen, guys. Take care of your health, right? Show up, right? If you want your wife to be all over you, yet you're a jerk, take care of yourself. Figure out what's going on. Why are you so angry? Why are you depressed? Take care of those things first. Then come to this conversation, right? You're never going to be perfect, but be on that journey of doing it. This is where the activation method, it's not a pitch for the activation method, but this is where the activation method comes in so clean, because you have the clean slate method. You have all these other things that allow you to clean up your side of the street first. Then you can jump into this conversation and do what you're doing, Tim, which you're on like level 10 here, right? You're on level 10 of this journey with Amelia and with yourself, and I applaud you for it. But guys, you don't just jump into level 10, in my opinion. You don't step up to the pros, so to speak, and do this. You want to make sure your stuff's cleaned up first, and then you can have this level of conversation.
Yeah, good suggestions.
Awesome, guys. Tim, I love this conversation. Hate the word needy, but I love this conversation. And I appreciate you.
I'm glad we could overcome that. I'm glad we could overcome the tomato.
I appreciate you bringing it to the table today. Guys, as always, go over to thepowerfulman.com. That's thepowerfulman.com/bonus and pick up a free training that we have there for you. Until next time, have an amazing day. And guys, take some action. This is the time. Any moment of insight, take action. We'll see you next time on The Powerful Man Show.